Love it. All right. Well, hey, welcome everybody. We're excited that you joined us for today's show. I'm David Bush, alongside of my co-part and co-host in the show, Jim Cathcart. Jim, welcome to the show today.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Hey, we're on week 7 of our 8-week Extraordinary Lifestyle Entrepreneur Challenge. We're excited for those of you that are here today because it shows that you're committed to finish strong. If you are just joining us and you're joining us for this particular session and you don't know anything about what we're talking about, that's perfectly okay, because today's session is going to be well suited for your particular interests. We're going to be talking about how to expand your business and how to improve work-life balance in the process. Now, Jim, that may sound like a myth to people, but you've been doing it for over 40 years, and I'm learning lots of things from you on how to do that in my aspiring career to be a Jim Cathcart wannabe. Talk to him about a little bit about some of the things that go along with the thought process in the marketplace about growing your business at all costs and having to actually pay way too much for that growth.
Boy, that's a big subject you just gave me. I'll tell you what, I have been blessed to live a charmed life. Not that I haven't had tragedies and heartbreak and huge financial losses on occasion and things like that, health issues and everything else. But I've really led a charmed life. And I think it's because I've been intentional about living a successful, rewarding, fulfilling life for better part of 40 years now. In the 1970s, I was listening to Earl Nightingale on the radio and getting inspired, but I had nothing going for me. I was a government clerk. I hadn't set any goals. I was just dreaming. And then I started taking advice from leaders at the time that I had run across, everybody from Napoleon Hill to Dale Carnegie to whoever. And I started writing down my goals and getting serious and intentional about things. And I have remained that way for the balance of my life. As many of you know, I'm now 70 years old. I've been a full-time speaker and trainer for 41 years and have lived a pretty abundant life and career. Well, the reason is because I intended to succeed. I didn't hope to succeed. Hope to succeed in a wishing sense, that is. There's two definitions of hope. One means, hey, we discovered a possible solution. Now we have hope. That's a good hope. The other hope that so many people have is, oh, I hope we don't get hurt. Oh, I hope we don't lose all our money. Oh, I hope it doesn't rain. Oh, I hope traffic doesn't snarl and we get stuck and we're late for the engagement. That's negative hope. That's actually not hope. That's begging. And it's pessimistic. Stay optimistic. Focus on what you want and you will get what you're seeking. So how do you do that and have a life? Well, first off, you got to get clear on what kind of life you want to have, what kind of person you want to be, as well as what kind of business you want to build or what kind of success financially you want to achieve. They go hand in hand. There are a lot of my colleagues, and David and I were talking about this earlier today, a lot of our colleagues who are really, really successful financially. But there aren't a lot of our colleagues who have really, really successful financial lives and successful personal lives. And I think that's because they get off balance. They could have both, but they don't. They get off balance thinking, if I get enough money, everything else will be okay. People will love me. My health will be good. I'll live a long life. My parents will respect me. The people I admire will want to get to know me if only I can get enough money. It's not down that road. Money makes a huge difference. Money matters. Money is your vehicle for removing barriers in much of life, but money is not going to satisfy your heart and soul, not going to make you feel like you matter, and it's not going to make people you admire, truly admire as people, want to spend quality time with you. That's going to come from the other part of the equation, and that is becoming the kind of person who would have the sort of life you want to have. You see, you've got to develop your communication. skills, your interpersonal habit patterns. You've got to develop your personal behavior patterns, the way you live your life day to day, the things you think about day to day. You've got to develop those habits intentionally, as well as developing your business and financial habits so that you can have the kind of life that you want to have, afford to sustain it, and at the same time, deserve it because you're the sort of person that would do that.
Well, that's the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about today. And so if you have questions about how to grow your business and how to stay balanced, and we're not talking about equally balanced, when you're trying to launch a business or when you're trying to grow a business, you may have a sense of disproportionate time and energy that goes towards the business or goes towards building something, while the family may have to take a few steps back in terms of sacrifices with the amount of quantity of time that you're spending with them, or your hobbies and other things may have a short little spell where you spend some time really focusing, just like the farmer takes the time to get the seed in the ground, and when the harvest is ready, the farmer has to be out in the field, and sometimes those are long days and nights, but those are seasons, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, if you have not had a chance to take a look at all of the previous sessions, all of those recordings and all of the PowerPoint presentations are inside of our Facebook group, which is listed here on the screen. We have another session that's going to happen next week. We'd love for you to join us as we wrap things up and put a pretty bow on it and give you some next action so that you can take what you've learned in this 8-week challenge and really propel yourself and accelerate your progress beyond just some of these ideas that you've collected. Because, you know, Jim, we've been talking about a lot of ideas, and, you know, sometimes those ideas don't always translate into action. They have to kind of be worked on and thought through and processed before we really take action on them. Talk a little bit more about what you've seen over the years and sharing ideas with people, and how that has required maybe a little bit of, what do you want to call that, absorption, where you have to have that time where...
Well, I was writing an article the other day that was the letter T words that leaders need. And the first one was target. In other words, you need a clear focus to put your energies toward. You need a good set of goals so that your target is obvious to you and it keeps you motivated. The second thing you need is tools. In other words, if you've got a huge wall to climb and it's way above your head and there's no handles to hang on to as you climb the wall, you're going to need a ladder, because without that tool, the goal will be overwhelming and you won't ever get started on it. So getting the right tools would be your next step. And then you need the training to use the tools. So imagine you've got a wonderful suite of software, and it's going to do wonderful things for you once it's implemented, but you don't know how to use the software. That means you've got the tools, but you can't use the tools, so it's worthless to you. It's even worse, you've invested the money and nothing's happening. So you need the training to use the tools. But then, and this gets to what you were just talking about, you need time. How many of you have ever gone through some extensive training on something and you got it intellectually, but you didn't yet get it behaviorally? In other words, it hadn't translated into an ability. It was just a new knowledge. See, we've got to allow the time for our habit patterns to evolve through new actions repeated again and again and again until they become habits. Years ago, I had the dilemma of being a young married adult with a son at home who was a little tiny guy. And I was on the road 250 days a year. Not every year, but for several years in a row. Now, on the road 250 days a year, wife and son at home, and the son is in grammar school and needs dad's attention. Those are not compatible. So I said, okay, how can I, without denying the opportunity that I've got to take advantage of at this early point in my career, how can I spend quality time with my wife and my son? So every day, no matter where I was in the world, I would get on the phone and talk with Paula for as long as I felt like talking or she felt like talking, so that we spent that time on the phone every day not just touching base. Hey, I'm here at the hotel. Is everything okay? Okay, good. Any mail come in today? Yeah, okay, got it. Okay, all right. Have a good evening. Love you. Bye. No, that's the mechanical function. I would call and we'd just talk as if we were in the kitchen having dinner together. And then I would say, put Jimmy on the phone. And he's a little bitty guy. Hi, Daddy, and we'd have that conversation. Well, one night I called and Jimmy answered the phone. He was, I don't know, 7. And he said, Cathcart Residence. And I said, hi, Jim. He said, hey, Dad. I said, that was good, the way you answered the phone. Then we started talking for a while. And he said, I'll get Mom. And I said, no, I called to talk to you. He said, just me? I said, yeah. I said, I was missing you. I wanted to talk with you. He said, well, okay. So we talked for a while. And then when we were done, I said goodnight and hung up. And then about, 10 minutes later, I called and talked to Paula, separate phone call. But I wanted to make sure Jimmy got it, that this was all about me and him. And then I called one time and I made an appointment. When I was going to be in town the next couple of days, I made an appointment at his grammar school to have lunch with him. And I went to the school. I got permission from his teacher and all that. So I went to the school, I checked in, and then when his class let out for lunch, I met him in the hallway, and I walked with him and his entire crew down to the big cafeteria, and I went through the line with my tray, and I got my little milk carton and did all the things the kids were doing, and I sat at a table where my knees almost came up to my ears because it was made for little kids, and we had lunch together, and we talked, and then at the end of it, he said, can I go play with my friends? I said, sure. And so he went out and he had recess, and played with his friends, and I went my merry way. But I made the point I wanted to make, which was, you matter to me. I want to spend time with you. I'm here for you. And I also respect what you want to do. Another time I called and I said, hey, when I get home, I want to have a camp out, you and me. We're going to camp out indoors because it's not summertime. So we camped out in his room on the floor in sleeping bags. And Paula occupied herself doing other things and gave us a whole evening and night all to ourselves. So we can make time for things like that. We can make times to balance our lives if we're intentional, but we've got to be absolutely as intentional about being the person we want to be as we are about building the career we want to have. So the ACORN principle, which you've been looking at on your screen, when I wrote that book, the whole point of that book is the seed of your potential already lives inside you. Nurture your nature. Show the next slide, would you, David? What makes you you? Nurture or nature? Nurture is the experiences you've had, the way you were raised. Nature is your genetic code. By the way, that picture is my daughter-in-law, Sonia, teaching her first grade class in California. What makes you and me who we are is a combination of our genetics and the way we were taught and the experiences we've had. And both of them matter because your nature unfolds according to the nurture or the experiences. And once you get to be an adult, you're in charge of the nurture. In other words, you're in charge of choosing the pathways and the experiences and the habits and the thought patterns that are going to make you who you're going to be.
Well, I know that there's a lot of people out there that are, thinking of work-life balance as, kind of a even scale. And what you're talking about, Jim, is you're talking about the idea that you're actually prioritizing experiences. You're maybe gone 150 days speaking a year, but you've come back and you've planned some specific experiences to make sure that you're filling that cup back up in terms of the life balance.
Absolutely.
What other strategies have you heard through the years, or have you taught other people as it relates to work-life balance and understanding how to get stuff done and a lot of it to grow your business, but still being able to prioritize those top priorities?
I think you've just got to make sure that you don't have two separate lives, that your business life and your personal life are blended in such a way that neither interferes with the other. So many people say, well, as soon as I succeed in business, then I'll have a good personal life. I'll work on that. In the meantime, they get divorced, their kids hate them, they lose touch with family members and friends and don't speak to each other for years, and their health deteriorates. Well, that's absurd. If you look at a balance wheel for life, mental, physical, family, social, spiritual, career, financial, emotional, all of those matter. And whichever one you neglect, the longer you neglect it, the more severely it's going to interfere with all the other parts of your life when it raises its hand and says, enough. For example, health. If you just pay no attention to good fitness and nutrition and health and rest and rejuvenation, if you pay no attention to that, no problem at first. Not much of a problem a little bit later. But if you neglect it long enough, you won't be able to do the other things because your body will start saying, look, you've been neglecting me, I'm out of here. And parts of your body that you desperately need are going to go offline. And you're going to end up with all the illnesses that are known to come from lifestyle choices, which is most illnesses. The vast majority of the illnesses people suffer from are lifestyle illnesses, not where they were attacked by a bug, but where it came from the choices they made. So we've just got to balance it out that way. And it starts with what you're looking at on the screen. We've got to know ourselves. Show them the next slide and click through the parts on it. People who know themselves just click right straight through all of them, are so much easier to work with, so much better to be around, so much more capable of bouncing back. They do better work. When I say know yourself, I mean in the sense of understanding your patterns, understanding what makes you angry, what makes you happy, understanding what kind of situations you're comfortable in and not comfortable in, understanding which skills you possess and at what level of development. Know yourself in as many ways as there are to know yourself, because then you can grow yourself. And if you don't know yourself, then you will tend to kind of put on a facade, hoping other people will think you're something you're not. And that's pretty sad.
I know that there's a phrase out there that says everything affects everything. And, to become an extraordinary lifestyle entrepreneur, but to be in poor physical health, or to be in a really bad relationship because you keep taking from the relationship and investing it into your business, that can affect your way of how you handle customers. It can be how you handle employees. So the idea of prioritizing the key elements of a life is extremely important to our long-term success. So if we don't end up taking the time to manage those priorities are going to rob us from our success, or in a state of divorce, you may divide the assets and maybe ruin a business opportunity. I know you've had a lot of success in maintaining a healthy marriage and relationships with your kids. Anything specifically that you do in terms of date nights or incorporating lifestyle activities and work?
I don't think it's in the how-to, but I think it's in the thinking process. Let's go back from personal velocity slide for a second. I believe it's important that we think about this in the right ways, because you can always find something to do that will bring it about. But if you're not thinking about it in the right way, then you're going to end up never coming up with those how-tos, like a date night or something like that. See, I knew years ago that the person I became was going to be the person I lived with forever. So it was important to me to become the kind of person that would actually deserve the successes I was dreaming of achieving. So I worked on a lot of things about me. I clarified my belief system, because I wasn't sure how much of what I'd been taught in church or what I discerned by reading the Bible on my own was actually the way that I really believed it was, or it was just my misinterpretation based on being naive. So I shopped other churches, and I looked at different belief systems and explored those and kind of tried them on for a fit to see whether it made sense to me. And I finally came to the conclusion that I am Christian, but not particularly beholden to Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, etc. Specifically. So, that was for me. Other people have different faiths. Some people have no faith in a creator, but they believe in some concept of how things work. And fine, but make sure you're clear on it. Don't be believing it in a superficial sense because it's what somebody you admire said. Know it in your heart because you studied it for you. Same thing's true when it comes to your physical behavior. Back off and look at yourself regularly. Do you use alcohol to cope with a stressful day? Well, after the first glass, you're overdoing it. Back off and look at that pattern. Find some healthier ways to deal with things like that. Do you regularly, after a stressful work day, behave like a jerk around the people you care about? And you justify it and rationalize it by saying, well, it was a tough day and I need time to calm down and chill out. No, that's not necessary in order to cope. There are better ways. Learn better ways of dealing with your stresses. Recognize that other people deserve the same respect that you deserve. So we've all got a zone of personal velocity. Velocity is the intensity and drive that's natural for you. And people are either higher, moderate, or lower velocity. And everyone has a zone of velocity within which they are in flow state. They are at their best. The way you can know is when you are pushing yourself too much, you start to experience stress. Then the stress becomes anxiety, which is based in fear of failure, fear of whatever. And if it's sustained at that high level, it leads to burnout, and you have to go through a recovery cycle just to get back to flow state. If you're not challenging yourself enough, it starts with boredom, then it becomes apathy, you don't care, and then it becomes depression, and you have to go through a recovery cycle just to get back to flow state. So start to notice more about when you feel stressed and when you feel bored, and figure out what your own pace and intensity and drive natural patterns are. Show the next slide, please. You see, if you're high velocity, then you love a big challenge and you go after that big challenge in a short amount of time. If you're low velocity naturally, you get a little intimidated by a big challenge, and so you go after your challenges over a longer period of time at a slower pace. Well, most people are moderate in velocity. Some of us, like me, are very high velocity. They love a challenge. They don't go out to buy China, meaning dinnerware. They go out to buy China, the country. They take on huge goals, and sometimes they fail. But the huge goal invigorates them. My wife, Paula, it has low velocity. A huge goal intimidates her and causes her to shut down. So she needs to identify goals as dreams so that she doesn't feel required to fulfill it, and then commit only to the steps along the way, and that's just fine for her. Whereas me, I want to change the world, go occupy a planet, something huge. And our son, Jim Jr., is right in the middle between the two of us, moderate velocity. He's got a wonderful life. He's a very successful man, happy father, just living a great life. So you don't have to be high velocity to make life fulfilling and rewarding.
Yeah, when we're talking about living the extraordinary life, it's finding out and really discovering the best version of you. And so, if you are right now feeling that sense of stress and burnout and anxiety, then maybe there's an opportunity for you to reflect back and say, you know what, maybe I need to start incorporating some more health, fitness, relationship time to find a little bit better balance in your life, and to help you to begin to find where your work-life balance comfort zones are. Maybe there's a point where you are.
Some people, pardon me for interrupting, but some people say, well, I should be highly motivated. No, you could be highly motivated, but whether you should or not is a judgment that I don't think we necessarily need to make. I think we need to look at our natural patterns and say, what kind of activities and goals am I best suited for? And then take on the roles that are closest to that. See, the better you know yourself, from back to the previous concept I was talking about, the better you know yourself, the better you can make life choices so that you start shaping your job, your duties, your lifestyle, your career to be right in line with the kind of person you actually are. And then you find that you're in the optimum zone of velocity most of the time, and you're achieving more than you ever have before.
Yeah. And we do have a certain amount of activities that are high leverage as entrepreneurs, people that are in the business to run a business. And so, knowing what your high leverage activities are and making sure that you're doing those at a certain level of perceived rate of exertion, right? You may be at a point where you need to crank up the level of activity that you're currently doing to see your business grow. And that may begin to stretch you a little bit. It may challenge you to set a bigger goal. You may have to change the way that you're currently looking at your business and what you see your job description as to be able to see that kind of business growth. And that may require a sacrifice. It may require an extra hour per day focused in on prospecting, approaching, presenting, following up, doing needs analysis with your clients or candidates, following up on big ticket items or big opportunities, and having specific time where you do a little bit of, hunting for whales or big clients or big opportunities. In the health world, we talk about the term fit, which is basically the frequency in what you do for exercise, the intensity in what you do for exercise, and the perceived rate of exertion. And then there's the time, how much time you spend on it. So this next week, maybe a challenge for all of you is to identify, the number of days of the week that you're going to concentrate on your high leverage activities, where you're going to be maybe pushing yourself to a higher rate of exertion. Maybe you are going to do a 30-minute Power 30 session where you're going to focus for 30 minutes on a high leverage activity, or maybe 60 minutes or 90 minutes. And how many times are you going to do that during your week, where you're really going to dial in on the things that you know are going to move the needle for your business? And how many times do you do it? Do you do it 5 times, 4 times, 16 times? Begin to identify some level of traction so that you can come back and evaluate your progress. And then you can begin to scale back or scale up consistently. And that's what's going to show consistent, predictable growth, is coming back and doing the things that you know are going to move your business forward and move your life forward. Maybe that's, for some of you, exercise, or having a special time. Maybe it's an hour of really focused quality time with your children, because that's all that you can currently give. But having that hour, phones off, just no interruptions, going for a walk, going to the park, or maybe it's the hour of focused conversation where you're asking your spouse questions. Those types of times can oftentimes be just what the doctor ordered. And that could maybe
one time Paula and I used to do what we call a penny walk. And we would just go out the door, flip a coin, heads it's right, tails it's left. And we'd follow for, like an hour or so. And it was just a great way of having no choice to make on the direction. We just determined the time frame and walked and talked and enjoyed life. And also take time every day, all day, to notice more and appreciate the beauty around you and the other interesting things around you. The more you notice, the more you know, the more you know, the more options you see, and the person with the most options usually wins. And also the person that enjoys and savors the beauty around them the most has the most sense of peace inside and a much happier life. So
yeah, well, one of the things.
Don't expect much. You've got it up on the screen now. What if a person doesn't expect much? Well, if you don't expect much, welcome to the normal world. Most people don't. But reflect on the times in your life when you did more than you thought you could, the times when you did really well at something, and observe that and keep notes on that and notice the patterns. Because you're capable of so much more than you give yourself credit for. Go to the next slide. How would the person I'd like to be do the things I'm about? That's what I call the daily questions from my book, The Acorn Principle, obviously. But that daily question, when you think about the kind of person you want to be, the more and more you think about that, forget about whether you can be that person. Think about what kind of person you would like to be. Emerson said, desire is possibilities seeking expression. In other words, if you are dreaming it, you really want to be a particular type of person, chances are very good you have that capacity within you. So ask yourself every day, how would that version of me do today's work? How would that version of me structure his or her day? How would that version of me deal with this setback or that insult or this pain or this confusion? How would that version of me thank the people who helped along the way? Be more of that person, and before long you start living the life that that person deserves.
Yeah, and I want to just echo what Jim said about the Acorn Principle, because this is a principle that stands the test of time. I mean, this is obviously something that Jim has built his entire career around, is really focusing in on, what it is that he wants to be, do, and have, and acting like that person today, and trusting the process, not measuring yourself against other oak trees that have been around for 40 years. So
especially not if you're a maple.
Yeah. That's true. And I think that a lot of people look to Jim's life or to other successful people out there, including myself many times. And, I want the things that those people that have already got them have been doing for a long time. They have been working hard, and they've been becoming the person that they wanted to become, every single day. When other people weren't willing to do it, they did it. And so if you're in a point right now where you're analyzing your success and you're comparing it against all the other neighbors or the other people inside your industry, and you're kind of becoming a little disheveled with your progress, just stop and focus on the roots. And are you doing the things that we've been talking about these last 7 weeks? If you're not doing them, then there's cause for concern, because you need to get some coaching. You need to go back, as Jim had said earlier, and take the tools that you've been given, and you need to get some training. You need to get some tools and training working together so that you can really make some progress, and maybe even a self-analysis of exactly where your heart is at, because maybe you're doing something that is, outside of what you've really been called to do. And we don't want to challenge each one of you to do something that you're not called to do. We want to challenge you to pursue what it is that's on your heart, that is on your heart, and it's something you're good at and people tell you you're good at. And then we want to have you to have extraordinary success with it. So we hope that you've enjoyed this session. We hope that you enjoy the next session as we wrap up this 8-week challenge. And we hope that you share some feedback with us. Jim, any final comments before we wrap up for today?
I think the main thing is just to remember that there's no such thing as constant life balance. You're always out of balance toward one category or another. So it's either mental or physical or family or social, spiritual, career, financial, emotional. It's one of those all the time. So just give each one the focus it deserves for the time frame it requires, and then make sure you don't neglect the others. If you stop every few days and check, just ask, what have I been doing in this part of my life? What about that part and that part? It keeps you on the beam, and you end up having a well-rounded and fulfilling life.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jim, for sharing your insights today. Just as always, we appreciate the wisdom that you share. And thanks to all of you for have tuned in to watch this presentation, whether you're watching the live version or the recorded version. We sure appreciate your feedback and responses. For more information, check out theextraordinarylife.com. You can watch other videos that we've got on there, read articles that we've posted, and also download the free ebook. So thanks again, everybody. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Take care.